All right, everyone, for what it's worth, Time has declared Donald Trump Person of the Year. Liberals are currently having a nervous breakdown about this, actually. They can't stand the thought of Donald Trump getting any form of recognition for his accomplishments, of which there are quite a few, actually. Even the liberals didn't stand against the Abraham Accords. I would note that. It got very little press coverage at the time, probably because there was no way to actually criticize it. Then they're saying, well, Time had Adolf Hitler as Man of the Year. Well, yes, but also Obama, I believe, was Man of the Year. I think they had Kamala on that, among other things. Carter and Reagan and other people like that. It has nothing to do with politics, actually. It's just a recognition that a person has stood out among, their compatriots, usually within the upper crust, as particularly significant within a given year. Donald Trump's political comeback, whether you like him or not, you don't have to agree with his ideology if you don't want to. I personally don't have a problem with much of it, although we'll be talking about Iran later. I do have a couple of problems with his general ideology. It's just relatively minor compared to other recent administrations. But whether or not you conceive of Donald Trump as a good person, or consider him to be justified, or whatever your political proclivities happen to be, you can't really argue that the second person in U.S. history to have a second non-consecutive term, other than Grover Cleveland, in the White House, and being the ultimate comeback kid, you can't really argue that that doesn't justify the moniker of Person of the Year. By the way, Time magazine, I have a feeling, is doing this in part in order to sort of cover its ass, because they've been exceptionally critical of Donald Trump now for years and years and years. And so I think part of the reason why they would be willing to give this to him and not try to snub him is probably because they fear some sort of reprisal. Now, Time magazine's subscription level has been dropping for years anyway. They're probably just worried that more people would drop them if they didn't give Person of the Year to Donald Trump. It also gives them attention. It's capitalism in focus, They're getting attention for having done so as well. But Trump is a transformative figure. Now, let's say, I'm going to argue devil's advocate here, so don't get angry at me. Let's say that I'm a liberal. So I voted for Kamala Harris and all of these other things. At the very least, I can't really argue that Donald Trump is not transformative. I can't argue that he ushers in a new political paradigm. I've talked about this now for the better part of a decade. The fact that the paradigm is now shifting within U.S. politics. Trump doesn't really surprise me at this point. In fact, more than a decade, actually. I was not surprised when he became the front runner. I was not surprised when he won the primaries in 2016. I was not surprised when he beat Hillary Clinton. The only thing that surprised me was that apparently voters supposedly were stupid enough to vote for Crazy Joe. I don't think that he was really elected. I think that he was selected and that election was effectively thrown. Thankfully, it looks like we're, meat's back on the menu, boys. Thanks to Anton sending me a tomahawk steak, actually. My dad is probably going to be the one that eats that. I've got the oxtail. I'm more into the weirder foods, weird by Western standards. It doesn't surprise me, therefore, that Time would declare Trump Person of the Year, because he's only the second person in the entire history of the United States to pull off what he managed to pull off. Now, there are a couple of caveats, admittedly. Kamala Harris was a legendarily weak candidate. She had effectively no platform. It was there, but half of it was stolen from Trump and the other half was mainly slogans. She was not likable, not personable, certainly not well-spoken, and so she sort of fell flat. I like how some people like, Trudeau the other day was saying, well, the United States is really backsliding on women's rights. Yes, because a woman has a right to be elected to office simply because she happens to be a woman. That ain't the way that it works here in the civilized world. If America's hat wants to believe otherwise, that's perfectly fine. Do whatever the hell you want. I would notice, I think that Justin Trudeau has a dick. It may or may not function at this point. I have a feeling that he's rather feminized due to all the xenoestrogen and soy, the products that he definitely imbibes on a regular basis. But that ain't the way that it works here. Donald Trump earned his position. He appealed to the voters. He won in a landslide victory. He won the popular vote and the electoral vote while carrying the Senate and maintaining the House. This was a landslide election. Not a landslide in the way that some right-wingers wanted it, by the way. They expected, oh, we're going to gain like 20, 30 House seats or something. I told them, don't hold your breath. But you did retake the Senate. You maintained the House, albeit narrowly. Donald Trump was elected, and he got the popular vote, not just the electoral vote. And why wouldn't you declare him Person of the Year? It's kind of a no-brainer when you really think about it. Liberals, meanwhile, are going crazy saying, well, Stalin and Adolf Hitler, they were also Person of the Year, so quite clearly there's a connection there. Again, mention to them when they bring that up. Obama was Person of the Year. I believe that Reagan was Person of the Year. I think Jimmy Carter at one point was Person of the Year. There's a tendency, I think Taylor Swift was Person of the Year actually a couple of years ago. There's a tendency for it to mainly be major politicians, political figures, and major celebrities. And occasionally like sports stars or something like that. Like, I don't know, Babe Ruth might have been Man of the Year at one point. That's basically the long and short of it. And so, you're comparing him to a couple of the people on the list that you really don't like, you have a big problem with, like Hitler or Stalin, but not comparing him to Taylor Swift. I know, it's no comparison to Joe Biden or any of these other people. It's very, very telling, actually. It's very, very lopsided. They're reaming time right now and saying, like, they're horrendous for putting Trump in as Person of the Year, but then at the same time, they're like, well, they also had, like, all of these other people we don't like on there, and making the comparison, and it's just very, very strange, actually. They're having a mental breakdown at the moment. A literal meltdown. Oh, the salt is flowing even more than on election night. I mean, election night was good enough. Now we've got the time meltdown. It's the ultimate salt mine. It's like going to the goddamn Dead Sea and taking a slurp. I'm McLovin' it. That's about all. Peace out.